Welcome to Magical Books for Kids, a podcast sponsored by Magic Everywhere, INC, a company based in Florida. Hosted by Michael John Sullivan, this is your place to hear the very best children's stories and an opportunity to get to know your favorite authors. Now, here is Michael John Sullivan.
Welcome to Magical Books for Kids. I'm Michael John Sullivan, and thank you again for joining us for another free edition. Magical Books for Kids is sponsored by Magic Everywhere, Inc., an INC corporation based in Kissimmee, Florida. As we mentioned, it is free on all platforms, and we update every Wednesday with another great author. And today's great author is Carolyn Crimi. She is the author of many children's books, including Weird Little Robots, Henry and the Buccaneer Bunnies, and Secondhand Dogs. Her book, There Might Be Lobsters, won the prestigious the Golden Kite Award for Best Picture Book Text. She loves doing school visits and has visited elementary schools all over the world. Carolyn, welcome to Magical Books for Kids. It's an honor to have you, and congratulations on that great award, the Golden Kite Award for the book There Might Be Lobsters.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That really was an honor for me to get that award. I was tickled pink. And they flew me to New York, and I got to make a big speech and buy a fancy dress. So it was all fun. It was a very fun, and I am very fond of that book in particular. So yes, thank you.
Yeah, congratulations. As I said, every children's author who's written a book would love to have had that honor for sure. Yeah. So that's one of the ones that immediately pops in my mind, is saying, wow, that's great. That's spectacular. So first of all, as a child yourself, what was some of your favorite childhood books?
I would have to say that I think Winnie the Pooh is my all-time favorite, because I continue to read Winnie the Pooh today. I'll read it like every year, and it makes me laugh harder than any book. I am Piglet, definitely. I'm Piglet with a little bit of Pooh, but it's just, I love those characters. And my mom used to read it out loud to me, and she was a very good actress, and she did all the voices. And I just remember being entranced by the book, by her delivery of the book. She really made me love books, and she really helped me love that book in particular. I also really loved Eloise, who lived in the plaza. What little girl doesn't want to live in the plaza? I like that she was a little bit messy and that she had a dog, and she also had this sort of freedom within the hotel. I think that was really appealing to my young self. And again, so funny, just the funniest book ever. And let's see, I loved the Nancy Drew series, of course, but I also loved Wizard of Oz. I would get a new Wizard of Oz book on Christmas, and I would have it finished by the next morning. A huge Wizard of Oz fan as well. I have them on my bookshelves, but Ojo and Oz and Lucky Bucky and Oz, all the old time Wizard of Oz books, I loved them.
That's interesting that you mentioned Winnie the Pooh. So I think you're the first author that we've had on here, and we've done now almost 40 shows, that has mentioned Winnie the Pooh. And I was surprised that many more haven't mentioned that, because that was certainly big in our house when our daughters were growing up. They loved Winnie the Pooh. And it's so interesting because they became Disney fans and everything. And recently I bought a picture of Pooh with Piglet. And it was autographed by John Fiedler, who was the voice of Piglet.
Oh, okay.
He's since passed and everything, but he had signed a bunch of different pictures, underneath Piglet, he would say John Fiedler Piglet and everything. So it's cute, and you were saying that you're Piglet. I said, there you go. So there's the connection, certainly this morning. So those are all wonderful childhood books. Was there a particular author as you were growing up that inspired you to become today what you are, a tremendous children's author who's won a prestigious award?
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Well, I mean, as I said, every children's author would
great
love.
Award.
Don't be so modest. We know it's a great award. I know you're being modest.
I really, when I first knew I wanted to write children's books, specifically children's books, was in first grade, because that's when I started reading and being read to. And I think I must have started reading Wizard of Oz in like second grade, first or second, because I told everyone that I wanted to be the next L. Frank Baum. And that was my goal, to be the next, author of the Oz books. So I would say that he, for whatever reason, was really influential to me. And also A.A. Milne, I should have probably initials in my name, because A.A. Milne, L. Frank Baum, I feel like those really fancy guys get the initials. But I would say that those were my two favorite authors. And Carolyn Keene, because she and I share the same name.
There you go.
These are the childhood reasons.
Right, exactly. It's too bad they don't share both names, right? Be another.
Right.
There's another Michael J. Sullivan out there all the time, and people always get us mixed up and everything. So it's probably better just to have one Carolyn Crimi, I think, at this point. So why don't you tell us, first of all, before we get to There Might Be Lobsters, what about Weird Little Robots? That's very interesting to me. What's that story? What's the story about?
So Weird Little Robots was my first novel for children. I was so excited. It came out in 2019. I sold it in like 2015. So there was quite a few years there while it was being illustrated and everything else. But it's about a lonely little girl who wishes for friends. She's just moved into a new neighborhood, and she makes these tiny little robots out of found objects, and these robots come to life. And she also does make a friend as well, and is invited to also become part of this secret science society. So she has to choose at one point between her new kind of weird friend and this secret science society. And then in the meantime, there are these robots that have come to life and kind of taking over their life in a good way and in scary ways. So I never am one to summarize my book very well, but it has magic. It has tiny little robots. They're made out of things like cell phones and pencil sharpeners. I really loved writing about the robots the most of all. And only one is able to communicate with the main characters, and that's the cell phone. And the cell phone will text things like LOL and, things like that, but in totally inappropriate ways or not usual ways. So it was very funny to write that book.
And what age group were you shooting for in this particular book, since it was a children's novel?
It's 8 to 12.
It's okay. So that's a type of book that middle school or younger, a little bit older.
Maybe 3rd to 5th graders or something like that would read it on their own, or the teacher can read it to the class. It's a good read aloud. Some teachers take a chapter a class. It's a fun book to read aloud, and it's adventurous. They get into a lot of adventures, these two girls and these little robots.
Yeah, I found that, with publishers, they always want to know the age group and everything. Yeah. And what I find is a lot of times when it shows the age group, that it really reaches across all ages in some ways. I mean, I like to read all different types of books. It's much like animation or whatever. The certain animation series are for a certain amount of kids, and I find that college kids, even older, are watching animation that's supposed to be for supposedly 6 to 9 year olds and things like that. So I know it's a publisher thing where they have to put it into a narrow scope for you and everything. But it sounds like that's a book that older kids certainly would be interested in reading it. So Weird Little Robots.
You need to know where to put it in a bookstore too.
Right, exactly, right. Yes, that's another thing, yeah. And Henry and the Buccaneer Bunnies. Now, what is that? I love the title, first of all.
It's about a rabbit pirate who loves to read and is taunted by his fellow crew about his reading, but then it's his reading that saves the day when the Salty Carrot, which is their ship, is shipwrecked.
Okay.
It's a very serious nonfiction book, obviously.
Sure, absolutely. Have you written a lot of nonfiction, or do you prefer nonfiction over fiction?
I don't do nonfiction at all. I mean, I've done some work for hire projects, but it's not my thing really, nonfiction.
Right.
I like coming up with crazy ideas.
Yeah, you don't find too many children's authors doing nonfiction. I mean, I remember when I'm going to date myself, in the 1990s, I was doing sports biographies, and obviously that was nonfiction and everything. And to me, that was difficult. You know, even though I had experience as a sports writer and everything, it was difficult writing a book like that. Whereas writing a children's book, your imagination can just flourish, and you can write whatever you feel. You know, so that's a field that you prefer to stay in, the fiction end of it.
Absolutely, I just have fun with it. I like humor. To me, the whole fun is I love the writing itself, obviously, but I love coming up with the ideas and the setting and the characters. And I think it's just a slightly different skill set than nonfiction.
Okay. And the other book that we were going to speak about is Secondhand Dogs. Now, being a dog lover, I'm certainly interested in this particular book. Is this based upon a dog that you've had, or what's the story about?
So Secondhand Dogs just came out in July, and I'm really, really pleased with this book. It's about rescue dogs. This woman takes in rescue dogs. She lives with 4 dogs, and they're a nice, cozy little pack. And then she adopts a new dog, and this new dog is not a good guy. And he starts creating all kinds of trouble within the pack. So it's told from dog's point of view. And so each dog has, it's also multiple points of view. So all the dogs have chapters that are their chapters, which was really fun to write because they're very different dogs. And then I think the quirkiest thing maybe about this book is, at the time I was watching the show Orange is the New Black. Okay. And, it's an adult show about women who are incarcerated. And in the show, they would often, in the episode, highlight one of the characters and what her life was like before she was incarcerated. And that was one of my favorite parts of that show. And as I was writing Secondhand Dogs, I thought, we always want to know what our rescue dog, what was his life like before he met me? We have no way of knowing this. So I created, just like Orange is the New Black made, these backstories for each of the characters, I would have chapters that were called like Gus Before. Gus is one of the main characters. Tank Before. So you knew how they got into the shelter and how, what their story was. Those chapters were really satisfying to write. So it was a little bit of a lot of different influences, but initially I got the idea because someone posted on Facebook, because that's where all the good ideas come from, about this. It was just a short video about an older woman who adopted only senior dogs. And I think they're called Susie's Seniors or something like that. And she had maybe 10 to 15 senior dogs. And I thought that was such a sweet idea. And and I had a senior dog at the time. So that's kind of what jump-started me into the book. Although the characters in Secondhand Dogs are not seniors, but that just sort of jump-started it. Like people who adopt a lot of dogs and have a lot of love for dogs.
Yeah, it's I guess if there's one good thing that came out of the pandemic, was that a lot of dogs were rescued, and that was wonderful. So I think that and I think a book about rescue dogs is always needed and everything like that. And I'm sure that you're probably getting a good response, especially from the dog lovers, because because I think they're like the dogs. To me, I always call them the angels on earth. They love unconditionally. They're always there for you, whether you have a bad day or not, or whether you're in a cranky mood or not. They're always there. Their tail is wagging, and they're there to give you love, no matter what, how your day has gone, or what you've done, or what mistakes you've made, whatever.
So what kind of dog?
We had a Maltipoo.
Oh.
Yeah, up on Long Island. Now I'm in Florida, but he was 11 and a half years old. He had a heart situation, and he had to be put down. And my first dog. Like, I never had a pet before, and it was devastating to me. I'd never thought I would feel the pain, losing.
Yeah.
And to this day, I talk to him. I'll say, just to keep him close to my heart. I mean, it was such a devastating loss because of all the love. He's always there. When I would come home, he was there in the window looking. It's just so any kind of dog situation like that. Was a movie about the dogs and everything, about how they pass on and everything. I think that was a movie that was shown at the beginning of the pandemic, and I can't watch it. It would break my heart. I need to have happy endings, even if it's not reality. I need that little sense of like, I'm going to see my dog again.
Yeah, I did not want any dogs to die in this book, and they did not. And a friend of mine said she gave the book to her nieces and nephews, and the nieces and nephews all loved it, but she said the one who loved it most of all was their father. He was reading it, and he was such a dog lover, and he said she knows dogs. And I thought, oh yeah, I do study dogs. I know every dog in my neighborhood, all the dogs that are walking. So it's a book that's very near and dear to my heart, because I do love dogs so much, and it's a heartfelt book.
Yeah. So any dog lovers out there, it's called Secondhand Dogs.
Yep.
And so that's a book that I'm going to pick up. And of course, let's now talk about the one that won the Golden Kite Award. And if you're not familiar, listeners, this is one of the most prestigious awards any children's author can get, and it was selected for Best Picture Book Text. And so congratulations again on that. And it's called There Might Be Lobsters. So why don't we talk a little bit about that? And if you would like to please read an excerpt from this honored book.
Sure. So the funny thing about this book was that I wrote it, maybe 10 years before I actually submitted it. I wrote it and I never finished. It was like very close to being finished. And then it sat in a notebook for a long time. I don't know why, I just forgot about it. And then I was looking through old notebooks, which you should do as a writer. You should always be looking through your old material, seeing how you can recycle it, seeing if there's a character you like or the situation. And I thought, I like this book. So I typed it up, sent it to my writers group, and they loved it. And I actually sent it to the first editor. It was accepted by the first editor who read it. So it was just a lesson to me that, you need to, maybe it just wasn't ready 10 years prior, but
right.
Never know. But always go through your work, I think. Always go through it and see where you might be able to update something. So I was going to actually read the whole thing because it's short-ish.
Wonderful. I mean, that would be great. So it's an honor to have you read your award-winning book.
I have to say also that maybe one of the biggest moments in my life was when Julie Andrews chose this book to read aloud on her podcast. And Julie
Andrews is
Mary Poppins.
Yes, yes.
Oh my gosh. And I heard her read it, and I'm actually getting chills right now, just reliving that moment. And so it's on the podcast, and I listened to it. I can't actually remember the name of it, but if you Google Julie Andrews Children's Book Podcast, she does it with her daughter. But to hear her read my book out loud, it's much better with a British accent.
Wow, isn't it? Why does everything sound better with a British accent?
It's so true.
Yes.
But she read it and she did a great job, and that was a huge honor for me. And so the book has done well. So, and it is illustrated. by the amazing Laurel Molk, M-O-L-K. Just the expression she puts on this little sweet dog's face. It all takes place on the beach. Interestingly enough, I'm not much of a beach person, and you will see that I am actually kind of like this dog in this book. So Eleanor is a little girl. Suki is a small dog.
Oh, I love that name. Where did you come up with? Where did you come up with that name, Suki?
Suki just came to me. I don't know. And then Chunkamunka is a small monkey. Chunkamunka was a toy that, like a little chimpanzee toy that my old dog used to play with.
Oh, that's great.
So those are the characters.
All right, and this is called There Might Be Lobsters.
Right.
Won the Golden Kite Award.
Lots of things at the beach scared Suki. Lots. Come on, Suki, you can do it, said Eleanor. She stood at the bottom of the stairs to the beach and waved to Suki. But Suki was just a small dog, and the stairs were big and sandy, and she hadn't had lunch yet. And her foot hurt a little, and she might get a shell stuck up her nose, and she might tumble down on her head, and then she'd need stitches, and besides, there might be lobsters. So Suki sat at the top of the stairs with Chunkamunka by her side. Oh, all right, said Eleanor. She picked them both up with a tisk and a huff and carried them down the stairs. Come on, Suki, you can do it, said Eleanor. She tossed a beach ball Suki's way. But Suki was just a small dog, and the beach ball was big and beachy, and it might hit her nose, and then it would pop, and it might be too loud, or it might knock her down and she might never get up again, and she might have to live on the beach forever and eat seaweed to survive. And besides, beach balls attract lobsters. So Suki sat far away from the beach ball with Chunkamunka by her side. Oh, Suki. Eleanor swooped that pup up with a tisk and a huff and cradled her in her arms. Come on, Suki, you can do it. Eleanor stood at the water's edge and splashed a little splash at Suki. But Suki was just a small dog, and those waves were big, and they were whooshy, and they were salty, and they were too wet, and they might toss her out to the middle of the sea, and she might float all the way to Tasmania or even Florida, and she might be swallowed by a whale, and she wasn't wearing a bathing suit. And besides, there might be lobsters. So Suki sat at the edge of the water with Chunkamunka by her side. Oh, Suki, said Eleanor. She shook her head and dove into the waves. Suki sat and watched beach balls bouncing and big boys running and umbrellas flapping and lifeguards blowing loud whistles and waves splashing with Chunkamunka floating out to sea. Suki barked for Chunkamunka to come back. Chunkamunka started to sink. Suki started to paddle. She paddled past a big beachy ball and through a huge salty wave and over something that might even be a lobster. Until she had Chunkamunka. He was safe. Suki had saved him. She felt braver than the bravest dog because even though she was very small, Chunkamunka was smaller. Oh, Suki, I knew you could do it, said Eleanor. She picked them both up with a yay and a hooray and swung them very gently through the air. Suki sat in the sandy sand with the wavy waves and watched for lobsters with Chunkamunka by her side. And she didn't see one all day. So,
Bravo.
Thank you.
I love the description. I love how you put the words together, and there's rhyme and there's description and everything. And I can see why that won an award. And I can see why Julie Andrews would want to read that because you get a lot of fun with that.
It's fun to read aloud. And it's funny because it's actually based on a true story, because at the time I had this dog who didn't want to go down the stairs to the beach, literally didn't want to go down to the stairs to the beach. And once I put him in Lake Michigan, which has no waves, but a 3-inch wave knocked him over. And that was it. That was it. He was
Oh.
like, no more. I'm never going back in the water. And he would go and he would sit on somebody's lap at the beach. And I thought, I'm not paying for this dog beach because you have to pay extra for him to go sit on someone's lap.
Oh, really? Did they make you pay for the doggy beach? I didn't realize
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I thought he could sit on my lap at home and be just as happy. He just didn't. He wasn't a sporty dog. He was a pup,
Right. Yeah.
not a pub. Right. He's a
Right.
pug.
He's a pug. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So yeah, it was all based on his little
On a 3-inch wave that knocked the poor pug down.
Yeah.
It's like, it's so cute. I mean, I can just see the reaction, like not wanting to go into the water and everything. Because the multi-pool that I had was certainly afraid of water. I don't know why, but he'll roll, but he would go out. Yeah, but he'd go out in the snow and like roll over, and his face was all covered with snow and everything. But he was fine,
Yeah.
you know. But it just wasn't something about water.
Yeah.
You know? So that book is called There Might Be Lobsters, and again, congratulations for winning that outstanding award.
Thank you.
Is there a book, whether it's a novel or anything, and I always ask this question to authors, is there a book that you haven't written but you want to write, but you haven't gotten to it?
Well, I'm always writing on a new project. I'm really, even though I have 18, soon to be 20 picture books, or I don't know, about 20 picture books, I've really enjoyed writing novels. So I really, I love an animal novel like Watership Down. So I'm just going to go through the entire animal kingdom. I have a book about dogs. So the next book, I don't know, might be about mice, might be about cats. I would love to write sort of a series, a fantasy series that is animal adventure, because that's my favorite thing to read and it's my favorite thing to write.
Is there a particular thing that inspires you, whether it's places or animals, or you mentioned the dog that inspired you? For our book, it's The Lizard Who Loves a Blizzard. I became inspired by, because I'm in Florida, and the lizard it would run. They're always running in front of you.
Yeah.
And you're always like sidestepping them, and you don't want to step on them, of course,
Right.
And so I was thinking, boy, these lizards are here, and it's so hot here. I wonder whether they would like to go snowboarding, or things like that. And that's how the whole story developed. Is like just an instant thought, one thought on a particular little lizard that was always running in front of me as I came out of the door of the condo that I'm in, in Florida. And that's how it all started. And it started for you with the dog. Are you that type of person where you could be anywhere and inspiration can hit you?
Yeah, absolutely. And really, seriously, I have gotten more than one book idea from Facebook, just because people will post, stories about dogs who are heading back home and they haven't, they've been lost for years and they're reuniting with their owner. I'm sobbing. It's just a 4-minute video. I'm sobbing. I can go down the rabbit hole of many, many different videos online, but also just walking around my neighborhood, just walking my dog every day. I'll see little strange things that will inspire me, or if there's a kind of I'm very inspired by old broken down sheds and broken down abandoned little shacks for some reason, because that came into play with weird little robots. So I love sort of the spookiness of that. Something I'm writing now takes place in a graveyard, in a cemetery. Actually, it's in a cemetery. It's in a huge, huge cemetery. So settings will sometimes really inspire me to write a story. All different kinds of things will just get me going.
So where's the best place to find your books? I would assume that these are on Amazon and everything like that, and on all the online. But if they want to know more about you or your projects and everything, how would they find you?
They can go to my website, which is carolyncrimi.com. They can go to there's actually an independent here in Illinois called the Bookstall. and they have lots and lots of my books already signed, but they can also call me and say, hey, we want this personalized. Somebody just called in. They'll ship a book to you. So that the book stall in Winnetka, Illinois, is a great place to buy books, my books in particular, because there are just so many of them that are signed and ready to go. And I'm always happy to personalize them. If you call them and say, I want to order this, then they'll say, Carolyn can personalize it to anyone. So those are, always I like to tell people to shop at their local indie because they've been hit so hard by the pandemic. So shop at the indie. Amazon, I don't think they need our business anymore.
No,
but of course, my books are available there too.
Yeah, well, we won't talk about Amazon. It's a waste of time at that point because they're like a monster. So you mentioned that you went to school visits as well. How is that now? Are schools starting? No, they're not there in Illinois.
No, not here yet. One school I have booked 4 days in this one area in Indiana, and they said to get back to them in the fall, but it didn't look good. That was Indiana. I have one in-person school visit this fall, but I'm just concerned about it. And then I usually have maybe 30 to 40 school visits this school year. So yeah, you can say that